Welcome everyone to the webinar, Personal Branding. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we are going to get started. My name is Danielle Hofer, and I am the Training and Outreach Officer at Women's Enterprise Center, and it is my absolute pleasure to be here with you today. I've been with Women's Enterprise Center for just over 5 years, and it's really at this time where I'm seeing the need for organizations like Women's Enterprise Center to support women entrepreneurs to realize their full business potential. And that's what we're here to do today, to help you build your personal brand, to help you succeed in your business. So here's a little 1-2 on how our webinar is going to work today. We have both a Q&A and a chat function. So how do we want to interact with you? Well, the Q&A is perfect if you want to ask our facilitator, Alex, some really specific questions that you want to make sure we see. The chat function is great if you want to interact, share where you're from, like you've already been interacting with. The problem I see with using chat for questions is they can get lost. So if you really want to make sure that Alex answers your questions, put that in the Q&A and we'll make sure that we get to it. There's going to be lots of content today, so now's a great time to get a pen and paper handy to write down some key notes, and we'll be sharing some additional resources after the session and of course the recording as well. So I want to share with you a little bit about Women's Enterprise Center. We are a not-for-profit organization dedicated to helping BC women start, grow, and lead their own businesses. And we do this through a couple main ways. So we have a business loan program. It's up to $150,000. And you can apply for startup businesses, growth businesses. If you're looking to purchase a business, you can apply for our loan program. And we are a business viability lender, so it's different than a bank. And if you want to learn more about what that means and why we look at business plans and business viability instead of, for example, your personal net worth or your credit score, I really encourage you to register for our business loan information session. It's a phone call that explains all the details about our loan program, and those happen bi-weekly on Tuesdays. So that's our loan program. We also offer professional advice and resources. This is free to you as a woman entrepreneur in BC. You can connect with a professional business advisor that will give you those next steps to help you with your business. So I encourage you to contact us. We'll give you our info. Netta, would you mind putting our inquiry at email in the chat so everyone can see it? So it's inquiry@women'senterprise.ca. You can send us an email and we'll make sure you get the resources and support you need. We also have skills training, which is webinars like this. We have mentoring programs. We have peer mentoring, one-to-one, taking the stage. If mentoring is something you're wanting to explore, visit our website. We've got tons of resources for you to do that. And lastly, here we are in the supportive community of women business owners coming together to support one another. Especially during this time, you know, it's so important to support one another. So I encourage you, even in your Christmas shopping, to support other women entrepreneurs in the network. And we also have COVID-19 resources. So specifically, if your business has been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we do have specific resources for that. We have the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, which is a loan fund dedicated to support those businesses that have been negatively impacted. So you can visit our website, which is wec.ca/COVID-19, and you can see all of those specific resources. As well, our business advising. If your business has been negatively impacted and you're wondering what some next steps are, you know, how to take your business online, any of those questions that come up, you can make an appointment with a business advisor and they will help and coach you through that process. Okay. So now on to today's session. When you think the word brand, you may associate it with a business or organization. However, a brand is much bigger than that. Brands not only represent large organizations, but they also represent you. Your personal brand helps people understand who you are, what they can expect from you, and why they want to work with you. In this workshop, you'll discover the journey to developing your personal brand and how to establish yourself both personally and professionally. At the end of the workshop today, in just 1 hour, you'll discover the difference between your personal and professional brand, develop your own unique brand statement. I can't wait to do that. And also understand how to use digital platforms like social media to develop your personal brand. And we are so lucky to have Alex Carino today, who is the founder and lead consultant behind Simplified Social. She's actually taken on Women's Enterprise Center's social initiatives, and the team is blown away by the impact. And she actually helped us with the We Create BC campaign, which led to so many stories shared. And we're just so lucky to have Alex working with Women's Enterprise Center. So her business is a social agency dedicated to helping businesses with organic social media management, content creation, social media advertising, and social media training through their unique online curriculum, Social U. In every job she's had, social media was a task that she volunteered for to manage because she loved it so much. She never imagined that it could end up being her full-time career. Prior to Simplified Social, Alex worked in branding and marketing roles for companies including Alberta Pension Services, West Edmonton Mall, and Alberta Women Entrepreneurs, which is that organization in Alberta that also supports women entrepreneurs. Alex holds a Bachelor of Commerce in Entrepreneurial Management and Diploma in Business Administration with a major in marketing. Wow, we are so lucky to have you, Alex. Thank you so much for being here. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now.
Go for it.
Perfect. Okay. All right, can everyone see my screen okay?
That looks great. Actually, you know, it's in presentation mode. We can see the timer and we can see.
Great. You can't see the screen, so that's always good. Sorry, just one sec here. Technology, Zoom.
I mean, you know, you don't want to spoil the surprise with what slide is coming up next.
No, I don't. So just give me one sec here.
No problem. And while we're waiting for that to get set up, I would love to hear on the chat what you guys are looking forward to learning today.
All right, how's this? Is that better?
It's still in presentation mode. We can.
There we go. Is this better?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, sorry. I had my two monitors connected, so sometimes you know how that goes, technology. Okay. Nope. Are we good to go now? Let's hope.
Yeah, go for it, Alex.
All right. Thank you, everyone. You'd think after using Zoom for the last 8 months that I'd be a little bit better at figuring out how to share my dual screens. So as Danielle mentioned, I'm Alex Carnio. I'm going to be taking you through this workshop today. I've been working in marketing and communications since 2013. And prior to starting my business, and a big leap into starting my business was developing my personal brand. Personal branding was really how I got started, and I'm excited to share how I developed that with you today and take you through some best practices and how you can do that for yourselves. So I'm based here in Kelowna. I actually just moved to Kelowna at the end of June. And I have to say that has been a definite seasonal upgrade from the city of Edmonton, which I just moved from. All right, so 92% of people trust recommendations from individuals, even if they don't know them, over brands. So personal branding, it's becoming more and more important. Even if you work for a corporation or if you're an entrepreneur, building a personal brand is more important now than ever before. And so just thinking about this stat, it's more important because the trust factor is huge when it comes to marketing. I always tell people that there's kind of the 3 factors that come into marketing. It's the know, like, and trust factor. So you might know about someone, you could could like them, but if you don't trust them, that factor of doing business with them is always impacted. So just making sure that you're building that trust, and that's all about personal branding and why it's so important. So now we're going to get into personal versus professional branding. So the difference is here. So what is branding? That's a really big question. So branding, I always tell people, it's not a logo, it's not your website, it's not your social media, it's a sum of all of those things together. So there's a quote here from Howard Schultz from Starbucks, and I really like it and I want to read it with you today. So it's, in this ever-changing society, the most powerful and enduring brands are built from the heart. They are real and sustainable. Their foundations are stronger because they are built with the strength of human spirit, not an ad campaign. The companies that are lasting are those that are authentic. So the brand is everything that you do. It's how you make people feel. It's what you deliver, and it's the authenticity of every interaction. So like I said, your logo is part of a brand. Your Facebook page is part of your brand. Your website is part of your brand, but that isn't just your brand by itself. That brand is everything that's the sum of all of those things. And the best thing you can do when developing your brand is to be authentic. In terms of personal branding, so personal branding is the practice of marketing people and their careers as brands, and it's an ongoing process of developing and maintaining a reputation of an impression of an individual, group, or organization. So you are your own brand. So regardless of whether you have a business, whether you're working from someone else, you are your brand. The way you represent yourself every day, you have a brand, whether you know it or not, or whether you believe that or not, you have a brand. You might not have a logo associated with yourself, but you definitely have a personal brand, and how you convey yourself in everyday interactions, how you convey yourself in business, how you convey yourself online and in social media, that all quantifies to your personal branding. So I'm going to talk a lot about social media today when it comes to personal branding, because I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, as I'm sure you can imagine working in social media. But just think about the two and the difference. The big question that I get from people is, how do I fuse the two? But the benefits of building your personal brand is, number one, it's that professional credibility beyond your job title. So think about if you're working at an organization and you want to have something that's more long lasting beyond working at some organization. So for me, when I was working at my last organization prior to starting Simplified Social, I knew that I wanted to do something beyond just working for an organization. So I knew I had to start building some credibility beyond where I was right now. So the number one benefit of building your personal brand is that you're going to have that professional credibility beyond where you're at right now. The second benefit of building your personal brand is your network leveraging. So thinking about building your network, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's in person, which we can't do as much of right now, but you want to build a personal brand that people know, hey, this is Alex. I know this is what she's really good at, beyond just knowing that I work at this company. The third is expert positioning and thought leadership. So you want to be known for something, obviously something good and something that you want to be known for. So thinking about the benefit of building your personal brand is that you're going to position yourself as a thought leader in your industry. So whether that's social media like me, it could be marketing, it could be human resources, it could be legal, it could be accounting, it could be so many different things. So start thinking about where you want to position yourself, because much like you would a company where you want to get really fine-tuned with how you position your company, you're going to position yourself very strategically with your personal brand as well. So how do we fuse the two? That is a really good question. So if you're self-employed, it's a lot easier to do, because a lot of the times people associate entrepreneurs with their brands already. But if you're employed, it's really important that you're following your corporate brand and marketing policies with your personal brand, because a strong personal brand that reflects or doesn't reflect corporate branding values and cultures can be dangerous. But if you do have a strong employee personal brand that drives well with your corporate brand, that can actually be one of the best value adds to an organization. So I found that sometimes when people are a little too vocal and they don't jive well personally with their brand and their corporate brand, that can cause problems. But I find that the best relationships I find is that when you have an employee that has a really strong personal brand, that can really help elevate the company's profile if they're doing it correctly. And then the average, sorry, just one sec here. I'm just going to my video is taking over my screen, so I can't read half my slides. The average employee has 10 times as many followers as their company on social media. So that's just something to think about when it comes back to building that personal brand. Also with your employees, whether you're an entrepreneur who has employees or whether you're an employee in a corporation. It's important to know this stat because the employee having 10 times as many followers as their company on social media is actually very powerful to a corporation. So usually what we're seeing with the clients that we work with is that if we share something on, let's say LinkedIn, for example, we'll get, let's say 100 likes. That's probably a little bit high, but let's say 100 likes, and then an employee shares it and it might get like 200 likes. So the employee, when you're posting personally on that account, that has a lot more reach and a lot more engagement because it's coming from a person versus a corporation. So having that personal branding strategy, especially on social media, is important. And that's what we're encouraging a lot of our clients to look at now is how can you use social media with your employees and personally to elevate your personal brand and your corporate brand as well. Because if your employee in person is talking about it versus the corporation talking about it, back to that trust factor, people are trusting it a lot more if it's coming from a person versus a corporation. So here's just a few considerations for building out your personal brand. The number one thing is to determine who you are. So this is a very heavy-weighted question. Who am I? That's like deep diving work. But in order to build a personal brand that accurately reflects your personal and professional identity, you first really need to think about who you are and be introspective. So create a list of your personal strengths and weaknesses. And these are some questions that I would start to ask yourself. So number one is, what areas of work do I excel? Number two is, what motivates me? 3 is, what characteristics have others complimented me on? 4, what projects have others had to help me with repeatedly? 5, which roles seem to drain my energy? And 6, which projects can I spend hours on without feeling overwhelmed and tired? So this is a really introspective activity to do, but I think that it's a good starting point because you really want to find when you're starting out with your personal branding is what do you actually feel passionate about? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What makes you excited to be doing what you're doing? And if it's something that doesn't make you feel excited and doesn't really feel right, then that's probably not the direction that you want to start positioning yourself with your personal brand. Like Danielle mentioned with my introduction, is social media was always something that I absolutely loved doing. It's something I always volunteered for. It's something that never felt like work for me. So I knew that when I was developing my personal brand that like it just felt right. It's something that got me out of bed in the morning. I felt so excited to do it. It didn't drain my energy. And I always knew that like I wanted to do something in that realm. So think about, when you're looking at this list of things, what are some things that you really love to do? What doesn't seem to drain your energy? Because there's enough of that in this world as it is. So think about, who you are and where you want to be. The next thing too is thinking about what you want to be known for. So your personal brand, I always tell people, doesn't need to be a final destination, but instead it's really more of a roadmap of where you want to go. So if I look into my journey 5 years ago into social media consulting, I knew this is where I wanted to be. So I started with really developing and sharing my content on my professional social media networks focused on social media and digital marketing. I identified connections in the small business community through online and offline networking opportunities. Right now, in-person networking isn't as prevalent just due to the restrictions, but I would say that online networking is still a possibility. And that's why we're going to talk about LinkedIn quite a bit later on. And then I really focused on growing my social media following with a targeted audience who engaged in my content. So think about yourself 5 to 10 years down the road. Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be known for? And really don't think about where you are right now, but think about what does the future you want to be and what do you want to be known for? The sky's the limit. The next thing is understanding your audience. So much like an organization would define their target audience, you really need to do the same homework for building your own personal brand. So if you're trying to reach new clients, new subscribers, a recruiter for your next job, you really need to be specific. So when you're identifying your audience, keep in mind your demographics. So whether that's your age, your gender, your location, your geographics, your country, your province, your city, and your psychographics. So your values, your activities, your interests, your opinions, your personality. Your target audience can't be everyone and anyone. So you have to be really specific when you're trying to target your brand, because if you're trying to target to everyone, you're just going to fall flat because you're going to miss your opportunity. So it's important that when you're picking your audience, you're choosing a niche and you're determining the best channels to build your personal brand based on that. So whether that's Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, you really need to decide who are you actually trying to reach and what's going to be the most successful to do that. For example, like we're very active on LinkedIn because that's where we find the highest converting opportunities to reach our ideal audience. Instagram we're active on, but we don't find that we're reaching the right clients from Instagram necessarily. We get a lot of exposure, but it doesn't drive the right clients to us. So just thinking in mind, in terms of your audience, just knowing where you're going to find them and being specific, because the last thing you want to do when you're building a personal brand is to waste your time because you have enough things on your plate, I'm sure. The other thing too is to look at the experts and influence. So who in the industry is doing it right? So if you look at people who have really strong personal brands, what are they doing with their own personal branding? How are they positioning themselves? If we look at different influencers, and influencer, I use the term very lightly. Like, I mean, influencer, I think we all kind of tend to think of like, Instagram influencers. So that's obviously one angle of it, but you could also look at influencers, whether it's like, LinkedIn influencers, people that have industry websites. Like there's like influencers within our own industry with digital marketing, like Neil Patel, he's a really good digital marketing influencer. And so he has a website dedicated to just sharing like really credible resources for digital marketing. And he's kind of a go-to in the industry. If you go back to like Instagram, you could look at, Jillian Harris, and she's always sharing a lot of different resources and products and things like that, but her audience engages really well with it. So look in your industry and see who's really doing it right and how do you want to compare to that. But the biggest thing that I'm going to say is you can look to the experts for like their advice and their influence. But the biggest thing with personal branding that I'm going to drive home today is that the best thing you can do is be authentic, because with personal branding, you are your brand, you are yourself, and what's going to set you apart and what's going to make you successful is being yourself and being authentic to yourself. Another thing too is that I'm just going to point out is that your actions offline matter as much as they do online. So like I said, you are your brand when you are developing a personal brand. So it's important to act in a way that's consistent and upholds that value of the brand you portray online. So let's say you are like a vegan, health conscious lifestyle influencer on your personal branding platforms, and then everyone sees you out in public and you're, engaging in activities that don't reflect that. There's an obvious disconnect. So when you're associating your personal brand, you want to make sure that everything you do upholds that brand and that you're consistent as much as possible. So now I want to talk about developing a personal brand statement. So a personal brand statement is a 1 or 2 sentence phrase that accurately sums up what you do and what you stand for. So it's essentially like your unique selling proposition, the thing you do better than any of your competitors. So it's kind of like your slogan, and it's a statement that's catchy, it's memorable, and it's attention grabbing. So it's worth creating a personal brand statement, whether you're a job seeker, a freelancer, or an entrepreneur. And it's anyone that's looking to network and stand out and benefit from having a great personal brand statement. Your personal brand statement, it doesn't have to be something that you post everywhere. It could be something that you want to share on LinkedIn or use in your messaging, whether you have that on your Instagram page or if you have a website that you build out. But really, this is more of like an introspective activity where you're thinking, okay, what is my personal brand statement? What is my unique selling proposition? And really getting down to what do I do better than anyone else and where do I want to position myself? So a personal brand statement really follows the classic formula is I help blank do blank. So the first blank is your ideal type of customer or employer. And then the second blank is the result you help them achieve. So this can be their desired outcome, result of working with you, and the main problem that they need solved. So you don't have to use this formula, but it does help as a building block. So I'm going to give you some examples just so that you can see the context. So some examples of this is helping you build a big brand with your small business, I develop powerful digital marketing strategies that help businesses find new customers. I help entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, and teams discover a powerful new relationship to who they are and why they do what they do through my proprietary methodology called the campfire effect. Hi, I'm Marie, an entrepreneur, writer, philanthropist, and an unshakable optimist dedicated to helping you become the person you most want to be. You might recognize that one, Marie Forleo. I'm a publicity and marketing strategist who helps experts, authors, and coaches go from hidden gem to admired industry leader and even a household name. So these are all very different, but these are all examples of your personal branding statement. So what I would like you to do, and I don't think we'll take 5 minutes to do this, and this could be more of a homework activity, but I do want to spend 2 minutes just to like take a couple minutes anyways to write out your simple branding statement using the formula. I help blank do blank. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to do that.
Thanks so much for that, Alex. And I wonder if anyone would be willing to share on the chat what their personal brand statement is, or, you know, make it interactive. What do you think about that, Alex?
Yeah, that would be great. If anyone wants to share it, I would love to see it.
Great.
I know it's a big ask, but I always love seeing these come to life.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what mine might be. I'm going to take a stab at it, and we'll see how mine goes. So, all right. I see a couple coming in, and I'll read them for fun. We have, I give money to hungry entrepreneurs to make a better future. Ooh.
Ooh.
I help people do their excellence. I help female entrepreneurs find the direction and tools to build a successful business. I like that one. Chrissy's asking, could you please put up the explanation of what the first and second blank mean again?
Yes, I'm just going to go back to this here. So the first blank is your ideal type of customer or employer, and then the second blank is the result you help them achieve.
Great. Okay, Marlissa says, I help empaths and overgivers turn their gift into a superpower, not a drain.
Oh, I love that.
I love that. I feel like I can relate to that.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, help me.
Yeah. I help people find wearable art that makes them feel good.
Love it.
I like that. Helping you get your affairs in order. Can you use this format? So that's a question from Darylyn.
Helping you get, I would be a little more specific, helping who get their affairs in order.
Good point. We are unique in making it our own business to be informed of your business. That one's interesting. What do you think about, so FunMe says, do you see that comment, Alex?
I'm just going to have to switch my view here for just a second.
Okay. Because what I'm understanding is you want it to be action oriented.
Yes, it needs to be action oriented. So you want to make sure that you're being able to be very clear with the problem that you're solving.
Right. So for example, the FundMe, when she says, we are unique in making it our business to be informed about your business. So it might be the next step, right? So once we're informed of your business, then what?
Then what? Yeah, exactly. I'd build on that a little bit more.
Great. Great to see these come in. Thank you so much for that participation. Oh, here's a vegan example. I help vegan curious start and continue lead vegan lifestyles, reducing waste along the way.
Oh, that sounds very interesting and timely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're going to keep moving along. These are all so great. If you want to keep sharing them, I'm happy to read through them as we go as well. But just for time's sake, we got to keep this show on the road.
All right, sounds great.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. So now we're going to talk, obviously being a social media person, you know that I had to talk about social media and the role of building your personal brand. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is updating and protecting your accounts. So the biggest thing here is deciding which social media accounts you're going to focus on and deleting old accounts you're no longer using. So for the networks you're going to be using, making sure all of your old information is complete, making sure all of your information is complete and accurate. So this is going to help you build traffic to the networks you want to showcase your work. And then you can also remove any old accounts or questionable content from the years past that doesn't have a positive effect on your professional image. So I can't emphasize this enough. I don't know why people who go into politics or any kind of public facing image do not do this. But if you are going to have a focus on building out your personal brand and you want to have more traffic around your personal brand, really take time to, go through your social media and see what is on your social media accounts. Do you have questionable content? Is there pictures or posts on there that would not really represent your brand well? Make sure that you delete any of that questionable content. And if you're not using any of those accounts anymore, just delete them or make them inactive. Make it so that no one can find you. I think it's a really good practice to do. And I would highly, highly encourage you, if you have not done so already, take a quick Google and see what happens if you Google your name. What comes up? Where does that go? Where does that lead? There's different things you're going to find when you Google yourself, but it's always an interesting activity to do. But I would definitely say, starting with your social media accounts, deciding what you're going to have as personal and public is important. For me personally, this transitions very well to the next slide. When you're building out your personal brand, you really need to draw a clear line in the sand of content that you're going to share. So you might decide that not everyone needs to see everything, and that's okay. For example, you could have a public Instagram account where you share your content to a wide audience and a private Instagram account that's for friends and family only. I have a cousin, she's in media. And so she'll have her account private for just friends and family, but then she also has a public Instagram account where everyone can follow her. And I've really taken this same approach too with my own business. I have a simplified social business account where everyone can follow me. And I do share maybe a couple personal updates here and there, but for the most part, I have my personal Instagram account where it's private, and I really just use that for friends and family. And that's where you see all my baby photos and dog pictures and, things that I just don't feel comfortable sharing to everyone else. So really, if you're going to start building out your personal brand, I think it's important to make sure that you have that clear line in the sand of what you're going to have as public and what is private. And that includes with Facebook too. There's different share settings on Facebook as well. So you'll see on Facebook, there's that little icon next to your post. You can see, is this post that has a little globe next to it so everyone can see it, even if they're not your friend. I'd highly recommend that you look at that before you're posting to make sure that only your friends can see it, unless you want everyone to see your post as well. The other thing too is just to make sure that you're keeping your image consistent. So like you would for a company brand, you want to make sure that your personal brand is consistent across your digital platforms. So when people want to learn more about you, they can search for you on a number of social outlets. So presenting yourself in a consistent manner helps you control their perception of your personal brand. So now we're going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, or maybe a lot about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really an important thing for me, and I think it will be too for a lot of entrepreneurs and employees here. So LinkedIn is no longer an online resume, it's your digital reputation. I really love this quote from Jill Rowley. Regardless of other platforms, I really think that when you're building out a personal brand, LinkedIn is really, really important. And I'm going to tell you why. So when I was building out my idea of starting my own company, I decided before building a website, before kind of going down this road into really investing heavily into starting my own business, that I was going to focus on LinkedIn and make relevant connections and ensuring that I had myself set up for success in terms of building a network around me. And LinkedIn was actually how I landed my first client. And from LinkedIn, that's kind of where everything started to snowball for me. And it was because I took the time to really optimize my profile, put out content that was relevant, and make relevant connections. So the first thing I'll say to people is that in terms of starting your LinkedIn, the first thing that I would recommend that you do is if you have a profile created, but first thing I want to know before we get into this, Danielle, is I believe I had a poll on LinkedIn that I forgot to ask you to launch. Could you just do a quick poll to see how many people have spent their time making their accounts public and personal? We'll do that one first. You guys want to take a minute to just do the poll here? I just want to know how much time you guys have spent doing a personal and public account, if you have or if you haven't. If you just want to take a minute to do the poll, that would be great.
All right, I'm seeing them slow down. I'm going to stop the poll in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so some people, we're about 67% say yes. Okay, great. And then the next poll that I have here that I would love if you could share for me, Danielle, we'll just do them both at the same time because I just kept talking and forgot to launch them. If you could just talk about LinkedIn. Do you have a LinkedIn account? I would just love to know yes or no.
All right, I see them starting to slow down. I'll give you 3 more seconds. All right, here we go.
Okay, 87% say yes. Okay, this is great. Thanks so much for doing that, Danielle. I'm just going to close out of this. Okay, so if you don't have a LinkedIn account, we can talk more about that after. I'm going to share my information with you, but I would highly recommend if you don't have a LinkedIn account, after today, you should get one. For those of you that do have a LinkedIn account, if you don't have this feature set up already, I highly recommend that you do this right after this workshop. The first thing is to get a custom URL on your LinkedIn profile, because a custom URL is a really easy way for people to find you on LinkedIn. It's also a quick ad for your business cards, for your website, and much more. So here's just a quick setup of how you would get that on your LinkedIn profile. So the first thing you'll log into LinkedIn and you're going to click on your profile and hit the edit public profile button, and then the URL button comes up. And then you edit your URL and be as close to your first and last name as possible. So you'll see right here, I have this, mine is linkedin.com/Alexandra Carnio. I don't have a very common name, but if you have a very common name, like my mom's name is Lisa Thompson. So literally, I think her public URL has to be like Lisa Thompson 78910, like something a little bit more, not as clean as mine, but this just becomes a little bit more challenging. But just try and make it as close as you can to your first and last name, because it's a lot easier for people to find you. LinkedIn was automatically assigning people when they first signed up for accounts a few years ago with a random URL. So the first thing I'll recommend with a LinkedIn profile is to make sure that you have your custom URL set up. Also, the other thing that I'm going to mention is that in terms of LinkedIn, don't set up your company page as a personal page. Always make sure that you have things broken up separately. And the same goes for Facebook. You should always have your page set up as an actual functioning company page and not a personal page. So LinkedIn profiles are made for personal accounts, and same with Facebook. So you should have company pages set up for LinkedIn and Facebook. Don't have them set up on personal profiles. And the reason why I say this is because when I see people setting up corporate accounts on personal profiles, you number one have to connect with this person to be able to connect with their page instead of just hitting a follow button to access their content. The number two thing is this actually goes against like Facebook and LinkedIn rules. Like you're supposed to actually set up company pages. You're not supposed to set them up as personal profiles. And the third thing is you're really putting yourself out of the analytics and the advertising options if you're doing this, because on personal profiles, you're not able to actually access any analytics. You can't set up any advertising. So when you're setting your business page up as a personal page on Facebook or LinkedIn, you're not able to access all of the things that you could on a company page. So make sure that if you have your business page set up separately, that you have it set up as a company page moving forward. That's just a little extra tidbit. The next thing when you're setting up your LinkedIn profile for your personal brand is to really make sure you're choosing a great profile picture. So this goes without saying, but common sense isn't always common. Number one is saying no to selfies, saying no to logos. Your personal brand should be a picture of yourself. Professional headshots are always best, but if you don't have the resources to get a headshot done, standing against a blank wall and setting the timer on your phone is a really good option. LinkedIn profile pictures with photos get 21 times more profile profile views and 36 times more messages. So here's just an example of profile pictures that we found that aren't so great. The first one at the top here, it's just really blurry. It's hard to see. She cropped herself in a picture. The bottom one, it's very distorted, hard to see. The top, you can't even see her at all. You don't really know what she's doing. And the guy on the bottom, well, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. He's holding 2 beer cans to his face. So not the most professional. Here's some really good examples of people that have better LinkedIn profile pictures. They're all just very clear, easy to see. So I would highly recommend if you can get a nice professional headshot done. There's some really great photographers that do headshot sessions. I just got mine done with Trevor Walker here in Kelowna. He does really, he's a professional headshot photographer. I was in and out in like 20 minutes. He just told me what I needed to do. And that was great. But before I was doing just like the blank white wall in my house, I had the self timer on, I put a filter on, it looked great. So just know that you should have some kind of professional picture done if you can. The next thing is to brand yourself with your headline. So your headline on your LinkedIn profile doesn't have to be your job title and your company. And I think that that's where a lot of people, they miss out on that opportunity because LinkedIn automatically applies that. So if you were to update your job title, LinkedIn would automatically say like, oh, do you want to update your headline to be so-and-so? But you don't have to use it as that space. I think that's a really good place to show your specialty, your value proposition, and your so what. So the more specific you are about what sets you apart from your competition, the better. So here's just the LinkedIn effect. I just love this graphic. So in real life, Jane is a supervisor, but her LinkedIn alter ego, she is a regional chief leader, solution evangelist, a project manager, a business guru, and a team guiding spirit. In real life, Carlos is a salesman, but on LinkedIn, he's a sales manager, area director, pro client idea creator, passionate solution delivering leader. And you'll go down the list. Like what I'm saying here is try and brag about yourself, make yourself stand out, and don't just go with the ho-hum headline. Really use that headline as a way to make yourself stand out. The next thing too on your LinkedIn is your summary. So I find that people really don't do a good job with their summaries on LinkedIn. So your LinkedIn summary is right after you scroll down on your profile. This is your first piece of real estate when someone lands on the profile and I'm scrolling past your profile picture. So this is your real first shot at capturing attention. It should ideally be 3 to 5 short paragraphs and walk the reader through your passions, your key skills, your qualifications, and a list of various industries you've had exposure to over the years. And try and avoid responsible, creative, effective, analytical, strategic, innovative, because they are the most overused and boring buzzwords on LinkedIn. Try and be creative. The next thing too is just don't be afraid to gloat. I think that especially as women, we tend to downplay our accomplishments a lot. And I know like working with women entrepreneurs prior to starting a business that women always, they ask for less than they deserve. So always make sure like with LinkedIn, this is your chance to shine. So you remember your profile is about you. Show people your achievements, your experience, and why you're amazing. And my preference is always to keep things in first person on my LinkedIn profile. So I always say like, I do this, or I have done this, or versus Alex has done this, Alex has done that. I think that writing in first person is more personal, it's more inviting, and it's just less weird. But I've seen it done both ways. It's totally up to you on your preference. But for my personal branding and my LinkedIn, I have had everything written in first person. The next thing too with your LinkedIn is adding your experience. I think it's really important to keep it relevant. So my job at Dairy Queen when I was 14 doesn't really serve a purpose now. Learned some good life skills at Dairy Queen, but it doesn't really help me achieve the clients and the status that I want to at this time in my life. So using your experience will help you find your next client or your next role. So I always tell people, especially if they want to break into new industries, I work with a lot of oil and gas clients in Alberta who don't want to be in oil and gas anymore for obvious reasons. And they want to find something new. And they were having a hard time finding work because all of their experience was related to oil and gas. So what we talked about was, what did you learn in that job and how could you take those specific skills and apply them to new jobs and really try and highlight that versus just the industry that you were in. So looking at, how you can take those specific tasks versus how you can take that specific industry and apply that into your experience on LinkedIn. You can also add multimedia to your work. So you can include company websites, projects that you've worked worked on. Case studies are awesome if you're in business to include in your experience section, and just fill out your profile as much as you can with volunteer experience, languages, and projects as well. The other thing too is endorsements. You can also get endorsements on LinkedIn. So this is a really good way if you have clients or past employers that you've worked with, it's a good way to show off your skills as long as your profile isn't overloaded with them. The secret to making them work is to keeping them updated with your skill set. So as you transition, like I said, between careers or develop new skills or drop outdated skills, you want to keep this updated with the ones that you want to be known for, and just be tasteful and thoughtful in your approach when asking for endorsements and recommendations from other people. It's becoming less and less common that I'm getting asked for these, but I know like 4 or 5 years ago, it was always I'd go onto LinkedIn and so wanted me to endorse them or recommend them for something. So just be strategic in how you ask for these. The biggest thing I think that's helped me in building my personal brand on LinkedIn is becoming an author and updating my status frequently. So LinkedIn is a really good platform to share your thought leadership content and your expertise. So I always say a good pro tip is that if you have a blog that you're writing for your website, it's really helpful to share it on LinkedIn as well as an authored article, because the chances are is that everyone that you're connected to on LinkedIn isn't going to always see what you have on your website as well. So if you go on to your LinkedIn profile, you're able to add an article to your profile. So what I'll do is if I write a blog for my website, I'll go immediately on to my LinkedIn profile and I'll add that as an article for my LinkedIn profile. The other thing too is just engaging and commenting as often as possible. Social media, the success with it isn't a one-way publishing street. In order to have success, you have to engage in conversation, you have to like other people's posts, and you need to make an effort to build community. So the more that you're liking and commenting and sharing, the more that you're going to become visible, and that's when you actually have the chance of converting. Some best practices on LinkedIn is one thing I tell people is don't add people that you don't know. So if you do want to add someone that you don't know or that you haven't met before, always add a personalized message of why you want to connect with that person and be like really sincere about it. I get to the point now where it's like if someone's just adding me and they don't give me any reason on why they want to connect and we don't have any mutual connections, I just decline it. So I think that it's really important that if you want to reach out to someone and connect with them, you give them a really valid reason of why you do want to connect. You don't have to accept everyone's request. If enough people reject your request and they say they don't know you, LinkedIn can actually shut down your account as well. So what I'd like you guys to do is just spend, I'm just seeing what time we're at here, just spend a couple minutes here and just looking at your social media networks that you're currently on. Are there private profiles? Are there public profiles, and why? And looking at your LinkedIn profile, are you active on LinkedIn? Does your profile need adjustment? And then maybe just look at some key takeaways from today's session on how you're going to improve your LinkedIn profile. So again, I'd love that if we could put this in the chat again and just spend a couple minutes doing this. And yeah, let me know what you find, and maybe just let me know why you have chosen to keep your profiles public or private and why. I'm curious and would love to know.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. And we have tons of questions coming in. So while that activity is happening, let's make the most out of this couple-minute pause and cover some of those questions. So all right, we're going to jump into this first question, Alex. So what was the name of the person that you mentioned who led in digital marketing?
Like the thought leader, I believe that was the question. I think the person that I mentioned was Neil Patel. He is a really good resource for digital marketing. So I can definitely type out the answer here if that works, Danielle.
Perfect. Maybe just put it in the chat so people could
yeah, for sure, I can do that.
There.
Yeah, I will do that. Neil Patel.
Okay. Going off that theme, are there any podcasts or books or resources you recommend?
Oh goodness. Podcasts, books, resources. That's a good question. To be totally honest, I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, not always a lot of business podcasts. But let me get back to you on that, because I definitely want to give you more of like a a good list. And I can't think of any off the top of my head that I really want to refer you to. I obviously have like a probably good list in my head, but let me just kind of think of that a little bit more and then I will provide those, because I definitely have listened to so many podcasts. But I do have like some influencers that I follow that I really do admire. One that I really enjoy following is Rachel Milkey. She's the founder and CEO of Hilberg and Burke. I really just enjoy her content and I love like hearing her story. And I think that she's built like a really interesting business model. Not that she's a podcast or a book, but I do follow her on Instagram, and seeing her story of like how she's gone through being a mom and being an entrepreneur has been really inspiring. But I'll give you more of like a solidified list as I kind of come to and think about.
That's we've got one here that is Today in Digital by Todd Maffin. That's one I heard today. So the podcast is Today in Digital. All right, and let's do one more question before we go back to that activity. So this is about the custom URL. So it's wondering that Leanne is wondering if it's for your name or your business. Can you change the custom URL to both?
Yeah, so for the custom URL that I was referring to, that's for your personal name. So this is talking about your actual, like your actual personal profile that we're talking about. And so that would be my recommendation, is like for your personal LinkedIn profile to have that matching your name. And then obviously for like a company page, you should have that matching your actual company, like name. So if my like, personal page is Alexandra Carnio, my LinkedIn company page is going to be Simplified Social. I want them to match.
Right.
Yeah.
And building off of that, there's a question: how come we do not use a logo for professional profile on logo? I mean, if I'm making a profile of my company, would it be better to use my company logo as the profile picture?
Yeah, so you should always use a company logo as your profile picture for a company page, but this is for like your personal page. So your personal LinkedIn, use your personal picture, but like for your company pages, you should always be using a logo. Like if you're a company Facebook page, your company LinkedIn page, your company Instagram, always use a logo, but for your personal pages, you should be using your headshot.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect. We do have some more questions, but we'll get back to the presentation and we'll cover those at the end.
Yeah. I thought of one podcast that I do listen to sometimes. It's called Goal Digger with Jenna Kutcher. And that's a really good podcast. She has some really good like digital marketing tips as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm just checking for time here. So we're at 10:53. So obviously this is a big activity, and I think it's a big takeaway activity as well. So I think that when it comes to LinkedIn, there's some good questions, and I'm going to just talk about them a little bit more. So personal and business, there are two different things. They do mesh together, but with your company pages, you're going to want to make sure that your company profile, so your company Facebook page, your company Twitter page, your company Instagram, that you have those broken out and they have your company logo. I always recommend having your company logo as your profile picture, but for your personal pages, you actually have that headshot, because you want to make sure that those are distinctly separate. So that was just what I was talking to in that. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. If you guys have any more questions on that, feel free to reach out to me, but I definitely think that that's important to make sure that you're clear about. The other thing too is just like with handle consistency. So when it comes to like the custom URL that I was talking about, so that was the one that I was showing you that was on your personal page. For your company one, you'll want it to match your company name. So you obviously can't always get as close as you want to, but for LinkedIn, my personal, like I said, is Alexandra Carnio, and then my company one is Simplified Social. So making sure that they're separate. But what I wouldn't do is like put like my personal one and have the custom URL Simplified Social, because I don't want it to direct to that. So hopefully that clarifies that for everyone. But really just looking at your LinkedIn profile, I really would recommend spending some time on it, because I do think it's a really powerful tool. So just to wrap up today, because we are just at 10:54 already, I can't believe how quickly time has flown by today. When we talk about personal branding, the number one thing is just really to get clear on who you are, who you want to be, and what you want to be known for. I know this sounds like a really, really big, important topic, and it is, but do some soul searching, be really internal and think about, what do I love to do and how can I make this something for myself? The next is develop your own unique brand statement and ensure your messaging is consistent everywhere. The third is to audit yourself across the internet. So take down that questionable content, make yourself public and private where necessary. And like I said, do that quick Google search. Even some people have come up to me after and said, like, I didn't know that what I was putting on Pinterest was searchable as well. So if you're pinning things, that shows up in Google too, if your name is associated with your profile. So just think about, what you want people to see when they Google you. The fourth thing is updating your LinkedIn profile and spend time producing content and contributing to quality conversations. And just remember, like, lastly, that branding is an evolution. So I look back on where I was 5 years ago, and I sometimes laugh because I look at my first logo, or I look at my first website, or I look at what I used to post, because that's where I was at that time. Like 2015 Alex is a lot different than 2020 Alex. And so I think it's important to remember that, branding is always going to be changing, and you're always going to be evolving as a person and with your brand. So update your brand as you go and seek feedback from your audience as you evolve. So just make sure that, don't get stuck and think that this is forever. It's an evolution, and you'll be surprised on where you see yourself in 5 years from now when you look back on it. So thank you guys so much for having me here with you today. If you would like to follow up with me via email, my email is alexandra@simplifiedsocial.ca. And I also would like to offer you guys the promo code WECBC from now until November 30th for 50% off all of our social courses at socialu.ca. But that is all I have for today. So I will let Danielle kind of facilitate this wrap up, but I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with me this morning.
Thank you so much, Alex. I personally learned so much. I pulled up my LinkedIn and I realized, oh, my headline is just my title. So that's something that I'm personally going to do, and I hope everyone took away some great tidbits. Now, there are quite a few questions that are remaining, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a formal wrap up, and then we'll go back to those questions in case anyone needs to go right on time. So I will share my screen here. Okay. Are you seeing that all right? Yes? I can't see you. I'm assuming.
I'm just seeing what.
Yes, I got a yes. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, perfect. So what I want to share with you is right now we're doing a really important research study around access to capital for women. The reason why we were founded 25 years ago was because it was identified that women were struggling to access the financial resources they needed to start and grow their own businesses. So every few years we do a survey to discover whether or not women are in fact able to access the capital that they need, whether they are getting good experiences when they go to a bank, or whether they have good experiences when they're chatting with Women's Enterprise Center to get a loan. This is really important feedback that goes directly to our funder, and any challenges that you're experiencing gets directly into the way that we operate as an organization. As well, we recommend the resources and what we learned from the survey to other lenders. So it's really important that we get the feedback. Netta, if you're on the line, I'm going to ask you to please put in the survey link in the chat. There it is, wec.ca/capital survey, and that is available for another week, so please fill that out. And we also have some great upcoming sessions that I highly recommend you checking out. For example, on November 30th, we're talking about the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. This is to discover how you can apply for up to $40,000 in interest-free loans, with up to $10,000 of that being a grant. So highly encourage you to register for that session if your business has been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. There's also an info session with doing business with the Government of Canada on December 1st. We've got a representative from the Department of Defense. We've got a woman business owner explaining how she got a really big contract with the federal government to grow her business, and it's really skyrocketed her business. So she's here to explain how she worked with the federal government, and we've got 3 government officials on the line to explain how they want to do business with you. So I really recommend that session for growth opportunities. And then also later on that same day, we have the Export Building Your Plan webinar. That is with Alpana Sharma. She's an excellent coach and business advisor with Women's Enterprise Center. And again, these are all free resources to help you with your business. So highly recommend going to our website and registering for those. How did we do today? Did you like the session? Did you learn something? Is there something we can do differently? Please let us know by filling out this survey. It's wec.ca/feedback/brand. And Netta, thank you so much for putting in that URL right in the chat. If you fill out that survey, you can be entered in a $50 e-gift card. So your feedback is so important to us. We value you and we always want to be improving. So thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Danielle Hofer. Please connect directly with me if you want to see more content like this, or if you want to have another topic, you can let me know and also complete our survey. The inquiry at email is there in case you have any follow-up questions. And right now we're going to take a couple minutes with Alex to cover those remaining questions. All right, so let's move right into it. Okay, Alex, are you ready for a fire session?
Yes, I am.
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna stop share so people can see us. So here we are. How do you write a personal brand statement when you do too many things or have too many non-linear skills?
Yeah, so what I would say to this is really try and get as specific as you can. It's okay to have maybe a couple brand statements if you have multiple things that you're passionate about. But what I would say is try and focus as much as you can, because otherwise it can be confusing to people what you actually do. So I know that it's great that you're good at so many things. And I know sometimes I struggle because I have multiple passions. But really what I say is try and have like that one kind of key area that you want to focus and bring people in with. And then sometimes the rest can funnel from there. So sometimes if I like have, people that want to come to me for social, but then I have other things that I can funnel from that area. But what I would say is like try and focus as much as possible, or have a couple different versions of your brand statement, but you don't want it to be too long and you don't want to confuse people either. So the more specific you can be, the better. So pick your favorite, pick where you think you're going to have the most chance of success, and maybe trial them too. So kind of go from there. But I know that it's a work in progress and you might try and evolve it as you move forward. But what I would say is try and focus. Don't try and be too much to too many people. Otherwise, it's just going to be overwhelming.
I agree with that. And this is one of the basic concepts that we teach in so many of our marketing resources. There is a course how we teach the six keys to common sense marketing. And one of the keys is specialists do better than generalists.
Yeah.
So think about what your specialty is and use that specialty to form your brand. Thank you for that question, Alex. There are other questions. So do you need an individual LinkedIn page? Move everything over to a company page?
So yes, you do need an individual LinkedIn page. And like you should have a company page if you do have a company. But what I'm saying with this was you definitely should have your personal LinkedIn profile set up and optimized. And then you should have your company page set up and optimized as well. You don't want them to be together. So make sure that you have your brands as two standalone things, because the problem is if you have your company page trying to act as a personal page, that's when you run into problems. Because if you have a personal page or a company page set up on a personal profile, you're not even able to access the analytics or things like that, or the advertising. So you want to make sure that you have, a personal profile set up. I think that's really, really important. So I want to drive that home, is to set up a personal profile and have a company profile set up separately.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And let's do one more question. Here is from Marlissa. is it good practice to post using a platform to Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn all at once? Does it transfer well?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of social media automation, but what my biggest takeaway is you don't post the same things to the same platforms at the same time. So what that means is like if you can use the same content, I'm totally fine with that. But what I would recommend is that if you're going to be posting to Facebook, you maybe post that post to LinkedIn on a different day. Just because I feel like people, if they're following you on one thing, they're more than likely following you on something else. So it's good to break up your content strategy if you can. So if you had a blog post, let's say, like maybe you post that on Facebook on Monday, LinkedIn on Wednesday, and then maybe you make a graphic for Instagram and put that into like a couple quotes or a couple different ways that you can use it that way. But I wouldn't post the same thing to the same platform at the same time. And that's what I see a lot of the times with social media automation is people just like schedule to all because they can do it, but that doesn't mean that you should do it. So definitely a big fan of social media automation because it allows you to simplify your life, but I definitely would not recommend doing it all on the same day at the same time.
Great. And obviously this is a really important subject. I'm getting lots of more questions, but we simply don't have time today. So what we're going to do is follow up with the recording. We're going to have Alex's contact details, and she's an amazing resource, and she's allowed us to share her contact. And she also has that discount code for her training session. So really encourage you to check that out. So we're going to wrap today. Thank you so much for joining us. To everyone from around the province and beyond, thank you so much to Alex. That was a fantastic session. And we look forward to having you back here with Women's Enterprise Center.
Yes, thank you guys so much. It was great to spend the morning with you.
All right. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.